Okay, thanks, Damien.
You're welcome.
So like Damien said, my name is Doug Cartwright. I am the regional sales manager for WTI for the Northwest and some of the central states. And WTI, we are a manufacturer of surveillance type devices, so cameras and other related products for the traffic industry primarily. About 90% of our business is in the traffic world. So the company's been around since the early 1980s, and we've got hundreds of thousands of different cameras out there. A lot of them don't have our name on them. We are like an OEM manufacturer for Econolite, and in the past we've been for other manufacturers as well. So we've got hundreds of thousands of detection cameras out there and whatnot. But what we're going to talk about today is our surveillance camera solution, as well as, like Damien said, the Hydra, which is a great all-around product for anyone that's having issues with transmission of their data feeds. We are an ISO 9001 certified company, which just means we meet all the standards for manufacturing, and the quality that we put out is audited, and to make sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to on that particular process. There's and I'm going to kind of skip through a lot of this stuff just to kind of, give you guys just a broad view, so that as you are maybe introduced to this for the first time, that pop some questions in, and then we can kind of go down that road. I don't want to do a full presentation to where you guys are, stuck here for the next 45 minutes listening to me talk. I'd rather answer questions that you guys have. The Viper camera, it's all aluminum camera. It's the only camera on the market right now that is a continuous rotation on both the pan and tilt axis. And this is something that's really unique, and the reason why it's designed this particular way is to allow for more flexibility. So with a dome type camera, you're going to have a horizon that you're going to run into where it just won't look up above a certain point. That's not an issue with this camera, because you can look straight up, straight down, whichever direction you want. And you also can look around objects, because if you notice with the camera tube over here on the side, not perpendicular up here with the main axis of the camera, what happens is you're able to rotate the camera 180 degrees, flip the camera tube 180 degrees, and you're able to look on the back side of whatever object that it's attached to. So it limits a lot of the blind spots that you get with other types of cameras. It has some self-cleaning thermostatically controlled glass. We'll go through that a little bit as well. It's an IP68 rated camera, which means the entire camera, not just the camera tube itself, but the entire camera is submersible, 3 feet of water for 30 minutes. And every single one of the cameras goes into a dunk tank before it leaves the factory to make sure that all the seals are good and everything there. In the Northwest, this is a really big thing, because with all the water that we get, the rain, the snow, those types of things, one of the biggest reasons that cameras fail is they get water into the main circuitry, and then that starts a corrosion process on those circuit boards, and over time those will fail. With the way that this thing is sealed up, we don't have problems with that. So it's a very, very well built camera, and that's why it's 100% aluminum, and we don't have any plastic or anything like that that's built into the camera. Even the gears inside of the camera are aluminum. There's no plastic gears or anything. It's a hybrid camera, and it's set up to run on all the different protocols that are out there. And the reason that we did that is we want this to be a camera that can be integrated into any system that's in existence currently, and you be able to utilize it. So if you've got Kohu cameras, you've got Axis cameras or Pelco cameras or whatever brand out there, we've basically built in the protocol into this camera so that you can tell your system that this is a Pelco camera, and your software will treat it as a Pelco camera. And so that it makes it very, very easy to integrate into any system without having problems that way. And then it also is an analog camera and an IP camera. So a lot of different locations, if they've had systems for a long time, they still basically have an analog backbone, yet they're trying to move forward and get to an IP system. This camera is perfect because you can run it as an analog camera for the time being, and then as you transition, you can move it to an IP platform. This right here just kind of shows some other features of it, you know, 68 presets, 8 tours, 32 presets per tour. It's got a compass on it, logo overlay, environmentally tested, wind tunnel tested. All of this stuff is, you know, most cameras are going to kind of fall in some type of range of this. This camera, one of the things that we're really proud of is the environmental ratings are definitely true. We've got cameras deployed in Fairbanks that, you know, they don't freeze up, they don't have any issues, and we're seeing temperatures below the -40 degrees that it's rated at. The wind tunnel test at 150 miles an hour. There's actually an ENG brake option on this camera that you can get to where it won't even move at that at wind speeds like that, and that's Category 3 hurricane. So, and then power options right now. There's a AC powered option or a PoE++ option. 30 times optical, 12 times digital on the camera. And then the resolution's obviously 1080p down to whatever resolution that you need to run. And this is something that we'll talk about more of the Hydra, but just to kind of wet your whistle a little bit. Most places, even though cameras are capable of streaming at 1080p, they're not bringing those feeds back to their traffic management centers at 1080p because they don't have the bandwidth or they don't have the system capabilities in order to stream 30, 40, 100, 300 cameras at 1080p. And that's where the Hydra comes in. So just kind of a little tidbit to kind of give you something to look forward to about the Hydra. This right here, it talks about our hydrophilic self-cleaning glass. And to my knowledge, we're the only manufacturer that's currently using this technology in the cameras. This technology is used in other places in the world. So like, if you've ever wondered how they clean, you know, 120-story tall skyscrapers, the windows on them, they use similar technology in the glass in those big, huge skyscrapers. And what it does is they actually fuse titanium dioxide with the glass molecule. So they put it into a vacuum chamber and they shoot molecules of this titanium dioxide to it, and it kind of fuses in between the molecules of the glass, so it creates a slicker surface. So normal glass, when you know water hits it, it kind of beads up and stuff like that. This hydrophilic glass, it flattens it out so that it kind of is smoother. It doesn't really stop it. Most people are thinking in their minds hydrophobic, like Rain-X or something you put on your car. And Rain-X is this one right here on the right. It just kind of beads up and rolls off. We don't want that to happen. We want it actually to flatten so that it pushes and cleans off all the debris that's built up on there over time. And so you don't ever really have any maintenance associated with cleaning them. And that's a big factor. So some of the locales that have gone exclusively to this camera, one of the biggest reasons they have is strictly because of maintenance issues. When you've got a camera that has a wiper or a dome or anything like that, you have to at some point clean that off. Wipers, they get brittle. So I've seen a lot of budgets in different locales where they have a wiper replacement scheduled in their budget system every 3 years, because if not, those wipers get so brittle that they won't clean it. A dome, a lot of places they have scheduled every 12 months. They go up, take a bucket truck, bring down the dome, replace it with a new one, take those other ones back to the maintenance shed, and they wash them up and get ready for the next rotation. So it's a lot of work and a lot of energy that you don't need to have with this type of technology. And then the backside of the glass, we do a similar process that allows it to heat the glass. It's indium tin oxide that is fused to the backside, and it's an electric conductor. So this picture right here is just showing the thermostat that's on the backside of that glass, and it is what basically kicks on at certain temperatures and will allow that glass to heat up so that there won't be any ice buildup on the lens itself. And these are just some pictures, like Texas did some ice tests and different things like that. And I'll just kind of scroll through these real quick, but you can kind of see ice built up around the window here at -30 degrees, but it was, you could still see through it and stuff like that. And then this just shows how it defrosts. Excuse me. This is snow kind of hitting the lens. A lot of times when snow's on competitor camera, you get like the snow will actually hit on that, and it'll, you know, just kind of start to build up a little bit because the lens or the dome isn't warm enough to keep it from doing that. On ours, when it hits that, they're just going to turn to water droplets, and it's kind of doing a twofold process. It's cleaning itself. So these are some pictures from Juneau, and this kind of shows like how that hydrophilic glass works. So this is a 20-minute delay, and you can kind of see as the water hits, it starts to form these dark circles around it, and that's the water as it starts to spread out. And I don't want to mislead anybody and think, oh, this is a magical process that water hits it and within 30 seconds it's cleaned off. No, it takes a little while for that water to kind of go off. And this was the reason we added these pictures to the slide presentation, is that it shows even in cold weather, right? Like, you know, you got snow on the ground. It had just, whether it was a slush or a snow, you know, on the lens. So in Juneau, the temperatures don't get super cold in Juneau, but let's just say it was like 25 to 32 degrees, something like that. It took 20 minutes for that glass to kind of clean itself off. There's a few little residuals there that if we were to take a picture another 5 minutes later, those would be gone as well. So that's kind of how it works. And it just, you know, the image is going to clean itself off and look really nice. These are some pictures of Fairbanks, just kind of showing what it looks like. This is some pictures of it has a low light camera block in it. And so one of the things that will happen with this is if you have it in an intersection where there's some ambient light, you're going to get a full color image even well into the night if there's ambient light around it, because it's going to pick up that ambient light, and the camera block is not going to switch over to the black and white mode. This picture, we had, you know, this was taken really early in the morning, in the dawn, right when it was starting to come up. The sun was starting to come up. And, you know, normally cameras wouldn't go from black and white to color until the sun's up and everything else. This picture right here was taken at about 1 a.m. There's still some ambient light in the parking lot and stuff like that. But you can kind of see that the differences in the grayscale and what kind of resolution you're going to get at night and stuff like that, which is, there's very good definition between the grayscales on that. So it looks very nice. This is just a PoE injector of PoE plus camera. There are other switches and things out there that you can use. You just need to make sure that it's a PoE++ compliant injector, and preferably 70 watts or higher. Ours is a 90-watt injector just because we like to overbuild and make sure that everything is going to work no matter what the conditions are. And they're relatively inexpensive, so it's kind of a nice thing if you're going to buy a PoE camera to have that. So any questions about the camera from anybody?
Hey, real quick, Doug, I have a question for you. So you talked about the Viper being able to work with many different protocols.
Yeah.
Have you heard of a protocol or a traffic management system called iNet?
iNet. I'm not familiar with it, but it sounds more like a software, like a traffic management software, not a protocol.
Okay.
Protocols are generally done by, so the main protocol that's out there is what's called ONVIF, ONIVF, and it's like an international standard for video cameras. Okay. Each manufacturer takes that ONVIF protocol and then they kind of manipulate it to kind of give their camera some additional features or some things that are unique to that manufacturer. And that's why, you know, like Kohu or Pelco or Bosch or anything like that, we can use that same protocol because we just have to modify ONVIF just a little bit to work with theirs. So, but that other one's probably just a software package, and those 99.9% of the time, the camera will work with any software platform. The software platform itself has to accept the camera though. And okay. So you just have to basically supply, you know, information to the manufacturer, and they go, okay, great, you're good to go. Because they use the same ONVIF protocols.
Perfect.
So
Perfect. And then I had just another question.
yeah.
The Viper camera itself, it's completely the whole camera itself is made in the US.
Yes, yes. So everything's manufactured in Ventura, California. From the circuit boards, or we have a picking machine where they literally take the transformers and they put them on the circuit boards, to the housings. Everything is done in the U.S. I can't say whether maybe some of the screws don't come from Taiwan or something like that, but everything is literally, the parts are done there. A lot of manufacturers. So to back up a little bit, there's a lot of federal DOT jobs that require a made in the USA type of camera. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One of the issues that we personally have is, to our knowledge, we're the only manufacturer that literally assembles, puts everything together, makes everything here in the US. Some manufacturers have the camera made in Taiwan or China, they ship it to the US, they install software onto it, and then they say that it's made and designed in the US. So, like, there's a big difference there. So,
okay.
So anyways, yeah.
Perfect. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Thanks, Doug.
Anybody else? Okay, let's move on. This is just our Viper camera control, and I'm going to show you that here in a little bit more too. These are different mounts that you can use for the camera. This is the Hydra. So this is something I want to spend a little bit of time on. It's a very simple product, but there is so many uses. Over the last year since we kind of launched this product, it's been kind of an evolution of what we've done with the product versus what we maybe thought we were going to do with the product, and what different users have actually done to incorporate the product. And it's a pretty amazing little device. When we first designed it, the engineers, their main kind of thing that they were looking for was a bridge between the H.264 format, which is a compression for video, to the H.265 format. And so the idea is to be able to take these, legacy cameras that are out there that are even like MJPEG format or H.264 format, compress that video feed down to an H.265 feed, and then ship it to the head end and break it back out, so that they would be able to keep using these cameras that are 8, 10, 12, 15 years old, that the technology's out of them, but now all of a sudden you've got a way to bring it up to current standards. And by doing that, you're taking and compressing that video format to a higher compression rate, which allows you to put more information network that you have. So if you have an old copper network or an old, even dial-up network, if you have cameras on those, you're not able to get very good video image, because they just don't have bandwidth high enough for today's video streams that are out there. And so you can put a Hydra on that camera and basically take and compress that and ship it along, and now all of a sudden you have a high definition feed on an old camera that didn't even have high definition to begin with, and you're able to get perfect streaming video. So that was kind of the original purpose, and we have a lot of customers that are using the Hydra in that way right now. We also have customers that have said, hey, you know what? And like I mentioned before, we've got all these cameras out there that are capable of 1080p. We're not even using 1080p because we can't, because of, even though we have a fiber network, we just don't have the resources to be able to stream all of that data coming through there. And they're able to put a Hydra on there, compress that down to where they can, and going from H.264 to H.265, there's 100% video compression. And so you're basically using 50% less of that bandwidth than you were before. And so now all of a sudden they're able to stream everything at H.265 and get high definition, and everything works great. It's also an agnostic device. So it doesn't matter what camera they have. They can have Bosch, Axis, Kohu, Panasonic, FLIR. They can have, it can be used for detection cameras. It doesn't matter. the Hydra will handle any of those camera feeds. And so it works very, very well to be able to help people, even if they don't buy our surveillance camera. It's something that they can utilize. And as you can kind of see from this third bullet point here, it's not a one-to-one type of proposition when you're looking at devices to camera. Example, if you've got a intersection that you've got two surveillance cameras, on opposite corners from each other, and you've got, 4 detection cameras, and you want to be able to bring the feedback on all of those at high definition, you're able to do that. So it's a very easy device to use. This is kind of a picture that kind of explains it a little bit better. So in this scenario, you've got, just a regular dome camera. You've got one of our Viper cameras. You've got a detection camera, and then those are all going into a switch. You take the Hydra, you plug it into the switch, you pull out the IP addresses of these cameras through the software on the Hydra, and you basically say, I want to transcode this into an H.265 format, or if it's MJPEG format on the camera, like this one right here, you could basically say, I just want to change that one to an H.264 feed. Whatever it is, you can go up and down between the different formats and not have any issues. Then you put it back into the switch, and then it goes along your pipe, and it comes back out at your traffic management center, and you're able to view it. Most software packages now accept H.265 feeds, so you don't even have to worry about having any way to view it at the head end. If your package doesn't accept H.265, you can always have a Hydra on the back end, just like we have here, and you can view the feeds however you need to view them. As an example, like in Utah, at the DOT in Utah, they still view everything at their traffic management center as MPEG-4 video, even though they're bringing H.264 feeds in and everything else. So they use devices like this to break the feeds back down, basically down code them into older formats and stuff like that, because of the way that their screens view and stuff like that. So in a nutshell, that is the Hydra. It's that simple, but there's so many different ways that you can use it, as far as just the video streams, taking and increasing the streaming capability of it, moving cameras that are MPEG-4 into up to H.265 format. So, and it actually increases the visibility of it, because it makes them easier to stream, and they're less grainy looking images. So questions about the Hydra? Anyone going once? Ask me a question, Damien.
So Doug, here in the Northwest, where do you recommend a Hydra going? Like, if somebody already has fiber throughout the city, will this help them just increase the bandwidth of the area, or are we looking more at areas that may be struggling with old technology at their intersections or at their video point, where this would really help them compress the stream and actually add on to their current system?
Yeah, good question. One of the first things, you're talking to somebody and you say, here, this is this great device and it helps you compress data. And the very first thing that they're going to say is, I already have a fiber network and we're good to go on our bandwidth. Okay, they may or may not be good to go with their bandwidth. There's more to that, because when I said before, they have 100 cameras and they're streaming them all back to their traffic management center at 720p. Are you doing that because you have the best bandwidth possible, or are you doing it just because you want to view a 720p image? If that's the case, why didn't you buy a 720p camera, right? So initially, most people think, oh, I've got fiber, I don't have a problem with bandwidth. The reality is they do. And if they don't today, they're going to in the future, because of not, like more and more bandwidth is being used by all of these devices. So you've got, everything in the cabinet now is connected to the switch, and everything is taking up little bits of data and it's taking that through the thing. The worst issues that you're going to see where people are actually going to admit to having problems are when they're using copper, when they're using cellular, or when they're using wireless radio. Those are the three that just from the get-go, you can say, hey, you know what, let's put one of these Hydras into a location and let me show you how this bandwidth is going to really, really help, you know, the feeds, the everything on that particular intersection. The ones that have fiber, it's more, hey, let me show you how we can take this camera and we can give you high definition, we can give you everything that you paid for out of the devices that you have at that intersection, so that you can actually utilize them to their full potential instead of just utilizing a little bit of what the devices were meant for. So does that answer your question?
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Doug. I really appreciate you, you know, sharing these two fantastic devices with us. So with that, you know, I'd like to wrap it up for today. If there's no more questions, have a great day.
Thanks, Damien.
Thanks, Doug.
Yep.